there's several areas to look at, because of course when anybody has a conversation, there's not lots of different elements involved, isn't there? And of course, as we know, dementia affects people in lots of different ways, so it's not necessarily going to be all those elements that need to be concerned about. So it'll depend on the individual and what they're struggling with. But I do think, as a rule of thumb, just speaking more slowly in order to slow down the pace of the conversation is a good thing, because it allows the person time to process the language that's coming in, that they're receiving, and to make sense of it. And also then to respond, so to make a reasoned sort of judgment about what they want to say back, and to find the right words to say, which is two different elements, but either of those or both of those could be an issue. So I think slowing down the pace just by, as I'm doing now, really, being a bit more thoughtful and speaking more slowly. It's as simple as that. And then on top of that, and I think this actually helps to slow down the pace, is to really be aware of the language that you're using and simplify it. And I think, and I do it all the time, I think most of us do in general conversation, we tend to link lots of different sentences together with linking words like and, because, but. And if we get rid of those words, if we consciously get rid of them, it automatically simplifies it so that we're speaking one sentence at a time. So it's easier to follow the meaning. And of course, because we're doing that, it will slow down the pace, because we have to think about the words we're using. And by simplifying it, I mean also bringing it down to one sentence at a time. You can also start to think about cutting out all those embellishments of words that we tend to use, which add more colour to a conversation, but can be quite bewildering if you're trying to follow the topic. So bringing it down to the sort of the doing word and the being word, if you like, the verbs and the nouns, are the most essential. And in fact, on top of that, what you can do is add extra tone, and I just did it there with the word extra, add extra tone to the words that you really want the person to grab hold of, and pay attention to. So just put in a bit more tone. So sort of like the, would you like a cup of tea? You know, immediately the word tea kind of helps to stick in your mind a little bit more. And then the other piece that I think is quite helpful when you're having a conversation is, of course, if you're with a group of people, is for only one person at a time to speak, and maybe to have one person in that group who takes the responsibility for making sure that the person with dementia is included, and maybe just using touch, just putting the hand on the person's forearm to bring them into the conversation, can be helpful as well. And as part of that, especially when there's lots of people together, but even one-to-one, we quite often, and when we get excited in a conversation, we flit from one topic to another. And that can be really hard for somebody who's having to process information and maybe not so able to do that. So it's helpful within the conversation, I think, to just remind the person and say, you know, in a normal conversational way, we were just saying, you know, that it's actually quite nice weather for this time of year, or whatever it is we're talking about. And so that we were just saying helps the person to hold on to that topic. And likewise, if you're moving off topic, so say, let's leave talking about the weather now, that's enough of the weather, let's do this. And you probably saw my hands kind of add to that with some gestures that are clearly saying, we've moved off that topic and now we're on to this one. So I think those are three quite helpful, just basic elements that would probably suit a lot of people.